Hey guys, Paradoxio here. Welcome back to a brand new video, everyone. Today we are beginning a brand new series on developing a game in Python. Now, this series will be structured the same as my Discord.py series, where several different topics or segments are broken up into their own individual videos. Now, the main objective of this entire series is just to build a very simple 2D platformer game in Python using a third-party library called Pygame. Now, Pygame is essentially the engine that our game is going to be running off of. Now, when I say engine, I don't mean your typical game engine like Unity or Unreal. No, this is mainly going to be straight from all Python code that we will be writing for our game to function. Now, what we're going to be doing throughout the series is setting our game up, getting started with a simple window to play our game on, render some graphics, some audio, basic movement, collision detection, all sorts of stuff. We will also dedicate a lot of this series to object-oriented programming. So if you know Python classes and you know object-oriented programming in general, this series would be a good breeze for you. If you don't know Python very well, I do highly recommend learning the basics of the language. Just to get you started with some stuff like variables, classes, lists, or any other kinds of collections. A lot of that stuff is what we'd be really working with a lot whenever we are working with our Pygame project. Without further ado, let's go ahead and install Pygame to our system so that way we can actually use it to get started with our first game. If you're on Windows, go ahead and hit the Windows and R key on your keyboard and type in CMD in the prompt here and press OK or hit Enter. Now, the process goes the same way as pip installing any other package. If you've done that before already, just pip install and in the package name, which is just simply Pygame. Now, I already got this installed, so I'm going to get this simple message here. If you haven't installed it before, it may take a little while, probably around 20 to 30 seconds, as it is a fairly large package. Now, this is a good thing because it shows how much we can really do in Pygame. And speaking of that, we can go ahead and close this now. And I'm going to just show you what Pygame really has to offer by going to their official documentation at pygame.org/docs. Now, when you go to this page, you will immediately see the quick start guide and the code that we can use for it. There is a list of several tutorials that you can go through, and there's also a pretty organized main menu up here where we can take a look at things like color, draw, events, images, mouse, keys, display, etc. Now, we're going to be going through most of the really useful stuff, so we're mainly going to be going through all this stuff here at the top. However, there is extra stuff here if you ever want to play around with these as well. Now, the objective of this video is just to get a black window to pop up on our screen here, where we can get it prepared to start adding things to our game like graphics, movements, etc. So let's go ahead and get out of here and get started by creating our main Python source file. Now, you can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it main.py. Now, in the future, when we get into object-oriented programming, we're going to have several Python files to store our objects, such as our player, an enemy, a weapon, an item, whatever you may be implementing in your game. We're going to store each individual object into their own designated Python file, so that way we can organize our objects into a more friendly manner, I guess, in a way where we can find them easily and change them instead of scrolling through our main source file. Speaking of our main source file, this main.py file is going to be the file that we will run when we want to play or test our game out. So this is going to be the file that contains the code that sets up our Pygame game. It's going to initialize all the graphics, it's going to have the movement functionality, etc. So to get started, we need to import Pygame, of course, and we also need to import sys, or system. Now you'll see why we're importing sys as well later on. But for now, to get started with Pygame, we need to first initialize the Pygame module by typing in pygame.init. And this is going to initialize all these submodules in Pygame. Now what we need to do is actually create our window that our game is going to be played on. We can do this by typing in window is equal to Pygame, if I can spell, pygame.display.set mode. Now in here, I'm going to pass in a main argument called size, and this is going to be a coordinate, which is a tuple. And this is going to be our width and height in pixels. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to store things like sizes in constant variables, like screen size, for an example. That is just me. Of course, you don't have to do it this way. Especially if you're going to eventually implement some sort of options menu where you can go ahead and change your screen size if you would like. Most games I ever make are really simple and they just have one set screen resolution or size, so I store mine in a constant. I'm going to type in this as a tuple because it's what it is, and it's going to have an integer and integer inside of it. So two values, both are integer data types. Now, just for simplicity, I'm going to make this a 600 by 600 pixel screen. Now, if I go ahead and run this, you may see that that window flashes and disappears. Well, why does that happen? Well, if you have a lot of experience in programming, you may know that what happened was we created our window and then the code terminated because we've reached the end. So what we need is a loop to keep this window on screen until we terminate the program ourselves, or until we create or set a flag that terminates the program for us based on an event, which is exactly what we are going to do. We're going to create a flag here, or a state called running, and running is going to determine whether or not the game is running. I'm going to set this to true by default, and we're going to type in while running, and then we're going to set up an event listener here, which is just going to be a for loop that's going to constantly listen for an event that happens through Pygame. And tab 9's already leaking the code that I'm going to put, so I'm just going to go ahead and press tab and paste it in. So for events in pygame.event.get, if events.type is equal to pygame.quit, running is going to be false. So what is this code doing here? Well, it's pretty simple. While we are stuck in this while loop here, while running, so when the game is running, we are going to iterate through this for loop constantly, and we're going to check if an event that is triggered whenever we quit the Pygame, what it's going to do is it's going to set running to false and break out of the while loop, which would in return terminate the program and stop the game. So basically, we're waiting, or we're checking for an event that we quit Pygame, and if we do, we're going to quit the game. Pretty straightforward and simple. Now outside this while loop, what we are going to do is we are going to type in pygame.quit and sys.exit. Now, I'm not necessarily sure just how necessary this line pygame.quit really is. I always include it just in case, but I think you may get by without it, but it doesn't do any harm having it anyways. sys.exit can be can have the same thing said about it. I just include it anyways, just for good practice. I believe what it does is it will actually terminate the task from Task Manager. I'm not really sure why we even have it, because I think Python quits anyways, or it ends the task anyways after the code is fully executed. But again, no harm is done by having it. Pretty neat. Now if we go ahead and run our code, we get our little Pygame window here. Obviously there's nothing on it because we haven't coded anything for our game just yet. That will all be next episode when we get into blitting a square or any kind of shape or object onto our window and adding some basic movement functionality with our WASD keys or arrow keys. We will also talk about FPS or frames per second next episode as well. But one last thing I want to do is I want to change this title here. It just says Pygame window, so how can we change that? Well, up here, next to where we created the window variable, we can just type in pygame.display.setCaption. And it's going to take in the string of the title of our game. So if we're making a Space Invaders game, you can just put in Space Invaders. Or just because we're working in Python and it's a bit of a corny joke, let's call it Snake Invaders. As soon as I go ahead and run the code, we now have Snake Invaders as our title. So that's basically it. We have made our main objective of this video. We just create a simple window for our game to be played on. Obviously, there's nothing on there yet. That'll all come next episode, as said before. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like me to continue this series, be sure to leave me a comment down below telling me that. Leave a like, subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already, also join my Discord server. We are above 900 members. I'm trying to get to 1,000 by the end of 2024. And if you haven't found out yet, I do also have my own official website at houseofcode.xyz. Currently, you're only able to create an account and just make a or upload a file or script to share with everyone else. Right now, I'm working on the forums section, and I plan to add courses to the website as well. So be on the lookout for that. Go ahead and create your free account, claim yourself a unique username, and with that all out of the way, you guys have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.